All right, let's do this then. Hey, everybody, how's everybody doing? I know it's a little bit early for this, but we actually have to kind of start a little bit early. We have plans tonight, so I won't be able to do my usual 8 o'clock show. So we're kind of doing a special 12 p.m. show. But as always, I want to start off with a video by saying I want to thank everybody that's an essential right now. The ones that are working in the fast food, the nurses, doctors, scientists, grocery store workers, fast food workers, truck drivers, just everybody, everybody that's being affected by this and have to kind of change their life to, make everything kind of normal to make it seem normal as possible. As always, wash your hands before every meal and after every meal. Um, you know, always carry some hand sanitizer with you and just make sure that you guys be safe, social distance, and the quicker we'll do our part, the quicker this all goes to this all goes away. So as I meant, so we'll see how it goes. For the ones that are quarantined right now, hopefully you guys are being safe, you guys are taking care of the body, you guys are taking care of the mind. Hopefully you guys are having some discovering some new hobbies to do, whether it's maybe reading a book, doing puzzles, or if you're just relaxing, watching TV. Hopefully you guys are you know not watching the news as much because it can get a little frightening. But hopefully you guys are doing fine. So we're gonna talk today about the NFC North and their schedule. And I am having a really hard time with this camera today. I don't know what is up with this, but anyway. We're going to talk about the NFC North and their schedule. As yes, we're doing this every day, division by division, and today's the NFC North. So let's get this started. Today, NFC North, we're going to start it with the Packers. So week one, they got to go to Minnesota week one. Right off the bat, back-to-back division games at Minnesota week one. Then they got the Lions for their home opener. So we'll see how that goes. Week three for their first primetime game, Sunday Night Football at New Orleans. Now this is going to be a good one. I expect it to be a good one. So you couldn't. This is probably a good game right here for Sunday Night Football. Then a week later, week four, they got the Falcons on Monday Night Football, and then week five is their bye. So the Packers got an early bye this year. So their first four games really, they all seem winnable. It's just it all depends on, you know, can the offensive line hold up? Who's going to emerge as the number two wide receiver? And is the defense going to just, finally, they're good. They're a really good defense. They got really nice pieces. Now they just kind of need to be a consistent unit throughout the every single week. So week five is their bye. Then when they come off the bye, they got back-to-back road games against Tampa Bay on the week 6, and then week 7 they got to go to Houston. So back-to-back right after the bye. And then week 8, halfway through the season, they got to go home. They play at home against the Vikings. So those first 4 weeks are going to be very critical for the Green Bay Packers, and it's going to be exciting to see how they handle it. They do have a lot of questions. Questions on the offensive line, questions on who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver, because Devontae Adams is number 1, but if you take him out of the game, who's that receiver that's going to step up for them? So that's going to be interesting to watch. Then week 9, after that Vikings game, they have to go on the road again, and they have to go to a place where they got dominated twice last year. They have to go to Santa Clara for a Thursday night football game. I mean, that's just how the cards turned for their favor this time, or not in their favor this time. They got to go back to a place where 2 of their most humiliating defeats in that year were at the same place, and now they got to go to San Francisco or Santa Clara, as I should say, and hopefully just get one back. We'll see what happens though. Then they come home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then they go back on the road against the Colts. They come back home for the Bears for a Sunday night football game. It's going to be a classic, the oldest rivalry in football. Bears Packers Sunday night. Perfect ratings right there. Week 13, they got to go to Philly, or they go home. They stay home, play the Eagles. Week 14, they got to go to Detroit. 15-16, they got 2 home field games right there. Week 15 is against the Panthers, and then week 16 is against the Titans, but on Sunday Night Football. And week 17, they finish up the season at Chicago. And just looking at it, from the first aspect of it is, there's those first 4 games are going to be very critical to the Green Bay Packers. They need to finish out 4-0. They have to. They have to beat the Vikings at Minnesota. They have to beat Detroit. They have to beat the Saints at New Orleans, and they have to beat the Falcons on Monday night. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough for the Packers. But after that, it just gets tougher for them. Back-to-back road games. Then you got a home game. And after that home, and which is a division game, and those are always tough, then you got to go on the road again to the 49ers, and then you got to play the Jaguars back on the road, home, away, home, away. So the worst case scenario for the Packers at this point, 9-7. Best case would be 11-5. If they can just handle those first 4 games, I don't see why the Packers can make another push for a division title, maybe another conference championship game. But really, their only questions are how many years? Can that offensive line hold up? Who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver? Can the defense play consistently every single week? And how's the dynamic of Aaron Rodgers knowing, hey, it's only a matter of time where if you're slipping up, Jordan Love's waiting. I know obviously Jordan Love is not going to play for a minute, but it's the same scenario that happened to Favre when they drafted Rodgers, and now the roles are just reversed. So we shall see how it goes, and I'm excited for it, for those Sunday night and Monday night matchups. Thursday night, I was talking to my buddy George yesterday. He's already calling it a win, and to be honest with you, he's already calling a win for his 49ers, and I see it happening because the last 2 times they went, they just were not ready. They weren't ready, and we'll see. I think those are the only questions that Green Bay has to answer. Can the offensive line hold up? Can somebody step up to be the number 2 wide receiver? And can the defense stop the run? Can they stop the run? They were very good on pass defense, but run defense was atrocious, as seen in the NFC Championship game. They made it that far, yes, but because the offense kept bailing them out. It's just a matter of time before, if your defense can't stop them and the offense goes 3 and out, it's just a recipe for disaster. So, like I said, 9-7 worst case, best case scenario, 11-5. I expect them to make the playoffs, but again, with those questions lingering, we shall see. So, moving on to Minnesota, we got the Vikings. As I mentioned, week 1, they got the Packers at home. Week 2, they got to go to Indianapolis and play the Colts. Week 3, they come back home against the Titans. Week 4, they got to go to Houston. Week 5, they have to go back on the road against Seattle on a Sunday night football game. Week 6 is Atlanta, and then on week 7 is their bye. So, looking at the Vikings schedule, very almost similar to the Packers, but the way I'm looking at this, it's, they can easily go. They can go 3-3, 4-2 at best at this point. And I think if they finish 500, then they're on the right track, because that means something's working. That offense, as long as Dalvin Cook stays healthy and as long as that passing game can do its thing like it did last year, the Vikings are going to be in a very good spot if they finish 4-2, 3-3. Week 7 is their bye. Week 8, they got to go to Lambeau Field to play the Packers. Week 9, they got to they stay home at Detroit. Week 10, they got to go to Chicago for a divisional game for a Monday Night Football matchup between the Bears. So those are always interesting to watch because it can go really one of two ways. Minnesota just pulls it out of their butt the last minute, or Chicago just gets them from the early get-go and never looks back. And then, after the Monday Night Football game, they have 3 straight home games. They got Dallas week 11, they got Carolina week 12, and then they got Jacksonville week 13. So this is where, looking at it from a fan standpoint, this is where Minnesota has to take advantage. They have to take advantage of those 3 straight home games. They have to come out of that 3-0. They have to. There's just, no matter how good Dallas offense is, no matter what the unknown between the Panthers and the Jacksonville is, they have to come out there and they have to win those 3. If they lose either one, then their final 4 games are going to be must wins. And I say that because at the final stretch of their season for them, 3 out of their 4 final games are on the road. They got to go to Tampa Bay week 14. They come home for the final home stretch against the Bears week 15. Week 16 and 17, they're on the road. They got the Saints on Christmas Day. Now, look, knowing the Saints, they're going to be looking out for blood. Again, we mentioned it before. Was that a push-off by Kyle Rudolph? I'm going to say yes. I think that should have been called. That should have been reviewed. For the refs to just call game after all that, that was a bunch of BS. But they got to go to the Saints again on Christmas Day, and then they finish the year at Detroit. So, to be clear, I mean, the only thing I see out of the schedule is it is balanced, yes. The beginning, they got to start strong in the very beginning. They have to go 4-2. 3-3, worst case, but if they can go 4-2 or better, they're going to be in a good spot. And then from week 11 to week 13, 3 home games. Those are 3 home games they must win. They have to win those because, as I mentioned, the end of the year, it's going to be really tough for them to, go on the road 3 out of 4, and that's a lot of traveling for them. So, best case scenario for the Minnesota Vikings is 9-7, or I'm sorry, 10-5, or 10-6. Sorry, 10-6 is best case scenario. The worst case scenario would be a flip, 6-10. If they don't get off to a hot start, if they fumble coming out of the bye, and if they tumble in those, 3 home game stands, it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be tough for them if they don't come out of the gate swinging. And they have a favorable beginning. The Packers, we don't know yet. As I mentioned, just a couple minutes ago, the uncertainties of their team. The Colts, they're an unknown right now. Yes, they look like they have all the pieces, but we said the same thing last year. Like, oh, they have all the pieces. Now they just got to put it together, and it didn't happen. The Titans were a surprise last year, but now I don't think they're going to be that much as a surprise this year now that everybody knows where the ball's going to go. And we've seen it happen before if you force Ryan Tannehill to win a game. But that's another topic for another day. We don't know what the, Texans are all about yet. Everybody's back on defense, but now the offense looks like it's missing a bunch of other pieces. Yes, they ended Randall Cobb. They got Brandon Cooks, and they got Will Fuller as the wide receiver set. But again, these guys are one pillow fight away from breaking a leg. I mean, they've just been so hurt these last couple of years that it's just availability is not in their suit. And then, of course, the toughness of Seattle. And then the Falcons are on the 50-50 swing. So we'll see what happens there. So again, the Vikings have to start off strong, and they have to go 3-0 in those, 3 straight home games. If they just tumble in the beginning and they tumble straight after the bye, 6-10, and it just looks like a lost season for the Minnesota Vikings after a couple promising pieces that they picked up in the draft. So moving on to the Chicago Bears. We have Detroit at Detroit. The Bears have the Lions. They got to go to Detroit week 1. They have the Giants week 2. They have the Falcons at week 3. The Colts at home for week 4. But then they got to go stay home and have Tom Brady and them come to Chicago for a Thursday night game. Week 6, they got to go to Carolina. Week 7, as I mentioned yesterday, they're going to come to LA at the Rams Stadium, SoFi Stadium for a Monday Night Football game. Then week 8, they go back home, play the Saints. Week 9 on the road again to play the Titans. Week 10, they got the Monday Night Football matchup against the Vikings, and then week 11 is their bye. Look, Chicago last year was a team that had a lot of Super Bowl hopes. They looked promising. The defense came back, and they just looked promising last offseason. When they played this year, it just didn't work out for them. Whether that was the inconsistency of the offense or it just, special teams unit failing them. The defense did its thing, but it can only do so much when all 3 phases are just being shut down and being terribly bad at their position. So for the Bears, looking at their first 10 games, if that offense is clicking, if the running game can get going, if the passing game can get going, I'm not saying that either Mitchell Trubisky or Nick Foles has to be a superstar quarterback. They just have to play within their own capabilities. If they can get that offense rolling and the defense can continue to dominate like it has the years prior than the previous year, the first 10 games, I could see them go 7-3. There's a big chance that they can go 7-3, and that's all if the offense can get going. If the offense can click, if the defense can just hold their own, and if the special teams unit can just block out all that noise and just do their thing, I could see by the time they hit their bye week in week 11, Chicago could be 7-3. And that's the only thing I can think of. Now, if it's the same old Bears where the offense isn't clicking and the defense can only hold for so long and special teams unit can go wary, I mean, honestly, it could be a very bad start. We're talking about 3-7 or 2-8. It could be that bad to where by week 11 they might be out of the playoff race altogether. So, like I said, if that offense can click and the defense can hold their own like they did the previous year, 7-3 is doable for the Chicago Bears. After their bye week and week 11, they got the Packers at Green Bay for a Sunday night matchup. They got back-to-back home games against the Lions on week 13 and then the Texans week 14. Back-to-back road games week 15 and 16 at Minnesota, at Jacksonville, and they finish off the year at home against the Packers. So overall, for what I'm looking like, it's kind of weird because they don't play the Packers for the first time until week 12, which is kind of like a late thing, like what's going on, It's kind of one of those, okay, week 12, I guess, but overall, I mean, if they can play to their potential, if the offense can get it going, I can see at the end of all this, them going best case scenario 11-5, worst case scenario 5-11 or 6-10. It's just, it all depends on how that offense can do, because again, what got them last year was the offense wasn't clicking and the defense had to bail them out. The defense can only do so much, and eventually the defense is going to get tired. It's very hard to duplicate a great defense like this, but again, best case 11-5, maybe a division title. Worst case 5-11, 6-10. And we'll see what's up with the Bears. I mean, hopefully it's a favorable schedule. I mean, it's very well balanced. They don't have to go very far. Their traveling is not that bad. Overall, I can't 11-5 or 6-11 or 6-10. and we'll see what happens from there. So good luck, Bears. So here we go. The last team, the Detroit Lions, for the NFC North schedule. Week 1, they got to play the Bears. Week 2, they got to go to Green Bay. And then week 3, they got another road game against the Cardinals. And then week 4, they got the Saints. This is a very tough stretch for the first 4 games for the Bears. Honestly, it's tough because, yeah, they added a lot of pieces. The defense might get better. The offense hopefully clicks now. But if it doesn't and it's the same old Lions, I mean, 0-4 is not out of the question, or 1-3 is not out of the question. They really have to come out swinging. Hopefully they do, but if they don't, the worst case would be 0-4, and then their bye week is at week 5, and this is kind of where it gets a little messed up for the Lions. Week 6, they got to go to Jacksonville. Week 8, they got to go to Atlanta. Week 6 is at Jacksonville. Week 7 is Atlanta. Week 8 is at Indianapolis, or they stay home at Indianapolis. Week 9, they got to go to Minnesota. Week 10, they got the Redskins. Week 12, they got to go to Carolina. So that's a good one. And then they can't even rest that long because 4 days later, it'll be Thanksgiving. Houston's going to come to town. We'll see how that goes. Week 13, they got to go to Chicago. Week 14, they got the Packers at home. Week 15, they got to go to Tennessee. Week 16 and 17, back-to-back home games. And, against the Buccaneers week 16. And then they got the Vikings week 17 to close out the year. What's really interesting about the Lions is that they only have one section where it's back-to-back home games. And that's week 16 and week 17 because it goes home, away, home, bye, away, home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away, home, home. It's just there's more back-to-back away games than there are home games, back-to-back home games for Detroit. And that could be a very, that's just that was just their bad luck the schedule makers gave them this year. So overall, as I mentioned, the best case scenario for them, and people are going to kill me for this, 6-10. The worst case scenario is another 3-13 season. Matt Patricia gets fired. Matthew Stafford will probably get let go. And now Detroit is on another rebuild again. And it all depends on how they want to do this. Look, I believe in Detroit. I really do. They got the players defensively. They got players on offense. It's just if the coaching staff can just put it together, then I could see a different outcome. But I mean, right now, looking at the schedule, best case, 6-10. I see 6 wins in the schedule. And then worst case, if half of those wins become losses, 3-13. And then it's just another rebuild for Detroit. I mean, I don't know how much longer Matt Patricia has if he does have another crummy year. So it all depends on the coaching staff. The players have nothing to do with this. The players are great. They have great talent everywhere, from the defensive ends to the linebackers to the quarterback to the wide receivers to offensive linemen. They're good players. They just need somebody. They just need the coaching staff to put it together. And if they can't, then this is going to be another lost year for Detroit. And they're back to square one and figuring out, well, what are we going to do with the franchise? So, I wish them the best. I hope they have a good year. It's just the way the schedule makers gave them out their schedule and they put it all together for them. It's just very bad. I don't think they did the Detroit Lions any favors this year. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know it's a little bit shorter this time. We didn't have any guests today, and tomorrow it's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be me. We're going to have the AFC South tomorrow for Mother's Day. So guys, just a reminder, Call your mom, buy her something nice. They're the ones that have to deal with you guys, so be nice to your mothers. Buy her something nice. I would say take her out to eat, but in the state we're in, that's probably not a good idea. Moms are the toughest people out there. So for all you moms out there that are part of this page, watching on Facebook Live right now, I want to wish every single one of you happy Mother's Day. And I want you guys to have the best day tomorrow. You guys truly deserve it. And tomorrow we will talk about the AFC South. It's going to be another early episode tomorrow, probably around the same time, 12 o'clock. I do have plans tomorrow, so Mother's Day, obviously. So another early show tomorrow. So if this is it, I see no more comments here. Any comments there? That is it, everybody. I want you all to have a beautiful day today, and you stay safe out there, guys.